Happy Tuesday, everyone. Thanks so much for taking some time out of your day to join this Tech Tuesday. We've been doing these for many, many months now, actually ever since COVID started. So trying to share a lot of the learnings that we've had and help educate all of you folks on different componentry, different use cases, and different approaches to migrating your use case, your project from the early stages, ideally into production. So by way of a quick introduction, my name is Nick Gasky. I lead our client enablement program at Kaleido. On the call as well, we have Andrew Pearson. He's our Chief Marketing Officer at Collido. And we'd love for this to be as interactive as possible. So if you have any questions, any comments, use the Q&A, use the chat. If you're brave, raise your hand. You can ask it out loud. Like I said, we want this to be interactive. So today we're going to focus on, as you can see in the title, understanding the components and limitations of blockchain as a service, and sort of leveraging the last 6 years of being in the enterprise blockchain space that I myself have and a few of our co-founders have as well, namely 3 of them. So we have a deep-rooted history in all things, open source, enterprise blockchain, and then many, many generations of blockchain as a service. So we'll probably spend 20 to 25 minutes going through some slides, sharing some learnings, sharing the way we approach and the way we see sort of blockchain as a service, or more specifically, consortia as a service through the lens of Kaleido. So when we started Kaleido, we had a few very, very high level tenets that we wanted to focus on, and namely was building our platform for modern business networks. And what we realize and what we've continued to notice is there's a ton of disparity amongst these networks, right? It's different use cases, it's different requirements, it's different IT shops, but the one commonality, and this likely goes without saying, but these networks are multi-party. And that's what Kaleido has been built for. It's been built to accommodate and allow you to have these synergies, have this cohesiveness with diverse modern business networks, multi-party networks. We've taken a ton of effort to make the platform itself radically simple, not only through the user experience and documentation, but more interestingly through the API layer, whether you're using infrastructure as code and standing up services and runtime components on the platform, or whether you're actually coding and programming against speaking to a smart contract, speaking to a service, consuming events. And then a core tenet, we'll touch on this in a good bit of detail towards the end of these slides, is that very, very much scoped for the enterprise. One thing we want to touch on today during this webinar is kind of this conflation or this fallacy that all BaaS is kind of the same thing, right? It's just vanilla blockchain as a service. I get a node and then I go ahead and build my application. And the truth of the matter is that that's very, very far from the truth. And what we see is we kind of see 4 different tranches or 4 buckets of kind of the journey into blockchain as a service. The first being scripts and templates, right? Getting comfortable with sort of your favorite Docker Compose file, standing that up on your machine, and you have a bunch of containers running and you can hear that fan buzzing. So this is a nice starting point. This is what a lot of us did 4, 5, 6 years ago, and it was really encouraging, really exciting. It's not the end game. If you want to stand this up yourself, then you're going to run into an absolute networking nightmare, very hard to upgrade and deploy new images, and then a ton of other issues. Moving forward, you start seeing platform as a service and sort of proper software as a service blockchain. But what we realize here is that you're missing a ton of critical components, either in PaaS or in sort of the classic blockchain as a service, namely all of the sort of ancillary services and all of the accommodations you need for what we would call a consortia, or what we would call one of these multi-party business networks. Where is your shared control plane? Where is your governance layer? Where are your SLAs? Where are your assurances of high availability, disaster recovery? Do you have all the check marks for enterprise security? Is it ISO and SOC 2 certified? Do you have best of breed key management? And the list is really, really quite exhaustive. There's 15 or 20 things that, if you really want an enterprise grade consortia as a service, these are going to be absolutely mandatory. And this is what we've really spent a lot of time, building Kaleido to be. Focusing less on blockchain as a service and focusing more on consortia as a service. giving attention to, what are the processes for member onboarding? How do we weave governance into there? How do we scale our network? How do we upgrade our network? And ideally, how do we transition these early stage projects, POCs, and pilots into production networks that can provide shared value for this entire business network, this entire consortium? And one great way to sort of visualize Kaleido is, yes, we are blockchain as a service, but blockchain as a service is a really small portion of what the overall Kaleido stack, the overall Kaleido platform is. It's really a digital transformation platform. So we're blockchain as a service, but we're giving you multiple doors to go through for your blockchain. You can go enterprise Ethereum, you can go with Corda. But then we're giving you a whole laundry list, all of these different ingredients that you're going to need to layer into your stack. So, think of, your favorite cloud vendor and their marketplace where, you want an IAM instance, or you want some storage utility, or you want a key management service. All of those are available to you inside of Kaleido with a very clean, very powerful REST API behind the scene. And we'll touch more on a lot of these services, and you'll be able to see them in action as we sort of create our first business network, create some blockchain resources and runtimes, and hopefully, if we have time, issue a few transactions.
Yeah, Nick, I think if I can just interject, it's a great introduction to sort of the concept too for blockchain as a service, which, if we'll kind of reflect back on the technology evolution, in blockchain and enterprise blockchain specifically, for a while there really were no SaaS offerings, truly software as a service offerings. And so, blockchain, to stand up a blockchain network meant a lot of do it yourself, kind of working at a script level, Node as a service maybe was the first iteration. But what we started to see that the migration towards true SaaS offerings, because there's an awful lot of infrastructure and maintenance work that goes into just running the core blockchain. And we're seeing a lot of early projects getting bogged down and sort of, trying to manage and tackle very technical questions sort of deep into, the system. When you apply sort of a SaaS logic to the enterprise blockchain space, suddenly you disentangle sort of that infrastructure layer, the plumbing, if you will, from the application and the solution. And that really started to help people accelerate their path to pilots and proof of concepts. I think the next phase, and Nick, you kind of touched on this, that there's sort of that shift to platform as a service and then blockchain as a service, where you think about within the cloud vendors, there's sort of blockchain options, but you're sort of still within the confines of that specific cloud. And then blockchain as a service SaaS offerings typically start to get multi-cloud or potentially hybrid. There tends to be sort of a boundary between that differentiates, I think, blockchain as a service and consortium as a service when you get into like really true multi-tenant and hardened production networks that are truly enterprise grade, right? So there's almost like these two axes that once you start to realize that your consortium or business network that you're looking to grow and enable through your blockchain solution expands, globally, and introduces parties that all have different maybe internal technology stacks and interoperability questions. You need to be able to accommodate sort of diversity in the consortium, right? And governance, onboarding, offboarding, et cetera. There's another axis sort of around what I call the enterprise grade qualities, where to do a consortium for any leading industry, you're typically going to need to have parties who all have a lot of requirements internally around security, privacy. And so that, you start to ask questions about, SOC 2 and ISO certification and compliance. And that's, I think, for us, where we've really seen that line, that boundary between a lot of vendors that articulate sort of a blockchain as a service offering and what we're really trying to help bring to the market, which is a broader set of capabilities that we call consortium as a service, of which that BaaS piece is sort of a feature, right? It's a component. Nick, I don't know if there's anything else that you'd add to that framework. But
Oh yeah. That's a nice expansion, Andrew. I think where I would extend that is with these modern business network, with these consortia, you have, as Andrew said, you have different tiers of participation. So you may have certain stakeholders in the network that do sort of want that I guess, first class accountability. They want to own, they want to operate resources. They want to be, the core participants in the network. Then you sort of have that middle tier where they just want access to the network, right? But they don't want to have the responsibility of standing up a node and operating key material. So now we get into scenarios where, well, maybe we can sort of redirect through our existing identity access management systems, and we can authenticate them through our own LDAP or Active Directory. And then you have the third tranche of folks that, I don't even care that the blockchain is back there, right? I just want this application that's providing value to me and providing value to our end business. And so it's, there's no perfect way to distill this, but the truth that we see is that these are diverse networks, and the scope of participation, it really, really varies dependent on the network and dependent on the use case. And so what we've built Kaleido to be, as I mentioned, is to accommodate sort of all those levels of participation. You have your control plane that's shared amongst your business network. This is where we're talking about identities and maybe X509 certificates that everyone can visualize. This is where we're onboarding folks. And this is where there's just a collective shared view of the network, of the memberships, of the participation. Then we have our data plane, which I'm not going to expand on this, but this is our blockchain right here, right? This is our blockchain, and this is some of the transport pipes that we have in Kaleido that let you do really interesting off-chain stuff, like sharing documents securely end-to-end, or sharing application messages, little lightweight pings end to end, in addition to many of the other services that I sort of showed you on that one chart. But the member plane, this is where it gets really, really exciting and really powerful. You are in true unilateral autonomous control of your own resources on Kaleido, but then extending that, what we've done is we've allowed you to have all of these rich integrations into an AWS cloud infrastructure, or into an Azure cloud infrastructure, or into your own on-premise data centers right here. So whether we're talking about identity management, whether we're talking about key material, right? Having your private Ethereum keys in a cloud HSM or in a HashiCorp server running on-prem, storage utilities, and it goes on and on and on. So we see these different layers here. We'll call this the layer cake right here, of the network, of the shared data plane. But then the really, really powerful and sort of accelerating layer is this member plane right here, where we offer you all these rich integrations, and we offer you all of this enterprise control over your own materials. So at Kaleido, one great thing that we have is we're working with, two of the great cloud vendors out there, AWS and Microsoft Azure, have been for multiple years. So we're spanning the globe. We're not siloing you into, existing, specific data centers. You can run in the States, you can run in Europe, you can run in Asia Pacific, working with our friends in the open source community at Consensus, at R3 Corda, with the best of breed enterprise clients and their accompanying algorithms, and trying to accommodate, this full myriad of solutions and these different architectures that you might need, right? All of these different protocols and algorithms offer different levels of privacy, different signing techniques, and different considerations and advantages for one. And so what we're trying to do, and what we're noticing here is we're going to get you into the build phase, right? We're going to get you into production, try to reduce those costs, and provide you with this really, really powerful, rich set of APIs. And I think the vast majority of folks on the call would agree. We're living in an API economy. It's great to have a nice user interface. It's great to have administrative dashboards, but you want to have the flexibility, to get to that infrastructure as code layer and that services programmatic layer. So in Kaleido, something that we're really, really proud of is we never built a service, we never built a CRUD operation inside of the dashboard where there wasn't a RESTful, either administrative or service API behind it. And sort of the manifestation of this is that we get you into the production phase. So very easy to onboard folks, streamline your IT governance and DevOps pipes. And then, you have your enterprise check marks, right? HADR, all of your security and compliance. Okay, so there's 3 themes that we have here that we're going to touch on. And then I'll go about 5 or 10 more minutes. We can take some questions, and then we'll actually hop into the platform to sort of speak some truth or show you the actual proof behind the pudding here. So what we've noticed and what we've seen here from a VP in a huge industry consortium is that COVID-19 was an enormous accelerator for digital transformation, by 10 years by all accounts here. And what we're noticing over the course, of the last 2 decades is this, very, very powerful and very noticeable shift, of digital transformation from the front office into the back office. So starting with business process management, where this was low volume but very high value, then moving into robotic process automation right here, where, sort of mundane middleware, middle office processes, where we're talking about high volume but, very likely low value. And then moving into the back office, right? Trying to create synergies and trying to create this shared data plane amongst existing siloed enterprise systems. And this is where we can see both high volume and high value, whether we're talking about digital assets, whether we're talking about private confidential information that needs to be shared, exchanged, and then referenced on the blockchain for indelibility and for potential future litigation. I see there's a few questions in the Q&A. Andrew, do you want to play moderator and either grab those and answer them or just punt them over to me? We can take them as we see fit.
Yeah, I think there's one, there's a couple that may be in reference to some of the prior discussion that might make sense to answer now. So kind of a question about like, how would we characterize some of the differences between, platform as a service, in the blockchain universe and SaaS models? I think, that there's obviously a lot of kind of blending of definitions that we typically hear when folks are talking about blockchain platforms, blockchain as a service, but in particular, sort of the shared responsibility model. Any thoughts on that? Sort of how PaaS, BaaS, SaaS all overlap?
Yeah, I think we're getting into sort of the nomenclature game there. I think the big takeaway of what we're trying to demonstrate at Kaleido is sort of that fourth tranche right there, where we're talking about consortia as a service. And we're going to touch, I've spoken at a high level about, a lot of the things that, really get you into what we could call an enterprise grade production business network or a production consortium. But I think the big takeaway, if we're talking PaaS or we're talking BaaS, is you're going to start, having to answer questions about, is this multi-cloud, right? Or can I integrate my existing systems? Do I have high levels of HA and DR? Do I have, SLAs? Do I have ISO 27000 and SOC 2 compliance? Sort of the laundry list of questions that inevitably there is going to be a no in some capacity, inside of one of those buckets right there. So the takeaway here is, less about sort of trying to, create this really clean dichotomy amongst the bunch, but trying to draw your attention to what we have seen in action over the last 6 years of successful production business networks, all of the pieces that they need, and all of the pieces that, quite frankly, are required by either regulators or by their own internal risk officers or compliance organizations. So I know that's a sort of a ambiguous answer to the question, but Andrew, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, I think I'd probably add too, there are elements when we think about kind of blockchain as a service, there are some core elements of SaaS that we want to sort of be able to distinguish, right? Because again, not all BaaS platforms are created equal. And as we mentioned, some of the earlier iterations or more simple solutions may not even have all the benefits that you would actually be looking for in what we'd cluster as true software as a service. So, when you think about SaaS, you think about kind of a fully managed blockchain infrastructure where the platform, the vendor, handles all those sort of lower level resource utilization, the scaling, the maintenance. So for example, a SaaS offering is going to need to include, update options, right? To move from one version of open source to the next, handling all that complexity within the full stack. Doing the testing, the validation, the preparation to validate, any new technology that's being introduced, right? But why enterprises invest and select SaaS platforms is because you benefit, from the rolling upgrades that everybody else on the platform is essentially helping to fund, right? Now, I think that what probably distinguishes a little bit a platform as a service in the blockchain space, where we probably kind of think about existing cloud ecosystems that have introduced a set of blockchain components sort of within that cloud, right? That's kind of what we're categorizing in sort of platform as service, is that there are a lot of benefits, a lot of the same benefits of SaaS, but you potentially end up with some constraints around cloud lock-in. And I think what we're seeing, and why we really think about sort of the consortium as the overall paradigm by which we're building out our enterprise blockchain platform, is that within a consortium, every member is likely going to have a range of needs and criteria. And so to truly be able to onboard and expand, right, think about your 5-year horizon, your 20-year horizon for the consortium, you not only need the benefits of SaaS, but you need that to be able to manage for the complexity that grows and changes and evolves dynamically over time around governance, around membership, around cloud selection, around security and privacy needs, right, compliance issues. So anyway, we can talk a lot about sort of the definitions, but that's, I think, if you can think about the lens by which a truly global consortium, 5 or 10 years from now, fully in production, would the criteria they would need when deciding among blockchain as a service or platform as a service options, I think you'll start to realize there's kind of a cluster of both features, capabilities, and interoperability needs that are typically left out of what folks are calling blockchain as a service today in the market.
Yeah, it's great. Thanks, Andrew. And I'm going to leave the Q&A with you because it's not opening up for me in my Zoom experience at the moment. So I'm sure everyone had a chance to sort of read this slide as Andrew was answering that, but just a great demonstration of all of the problems that COVID sort of unearthed for us, whether it's in sort of municipalities, whether it's in supply chain, whether it's just fraudulent goods or medical practices here. So we see the need, the unequivocal need for digital transformation. And speeding up now, what this allows us to do is this allows us to unlock those isolated data silos amongst companies. And we're talking use case agnostic here. This could be healthcare, this could be insurance, this could be supply chain, but we're starting to automate these processes. We're using Solidity, we're using core dApps to execute this shared business logic. And we have the blockchain ledger. We have the great pieces of cryptography and indelibility and our digital signatures that do allow blockchain to be a shared source of truth. The specific data that you're writing to is going to have huge variance, over your use case and over your industry. But what we are seeing is the ability now to unlock those previous siloed systems and use blockchain as the beating heart, as that synergy or as that glue between these different companies. And then again, hitting on consortia as a service, in order to be able to do this, we need those powerful enterprise integrations, and we need those very, very high levels of flexibility and accommodation. So something we've touched on many, many times in the past, and I've alluded to it as well, is that the blockchain is critical, but it's a smaller piece of the overall solution. It's maybe 5, it's maybe 10% of that full stack solution. And just tons of different components here: messaging, middleware, data storage, identity access management, key management, what's kept off chain, what's kept on chain. How are we going to, onboard new members? How are we going to dynamically evolve our network? How do the nodes change sizes? How do we upgrade those images? On and on and on and on and on. And, in Kaleido, as I showed you guys on one of the initial slides, is that, we've coupled our marketplace and all of those ancillary services along with a, wonderful enterprise grade blockchain as a service sort of offering here. And I've used this slide many times, but we'll run through it. And we see 4 distinct layers in sort of what we'd call an enterprise application stack. The data layer being very, very interesting. We start talking about, healthcare data, provider data, even sensitive financial data, legal data, all of that's going to stay off the blockchain, right? I think we know that by now. It's not a good practice to, write sensitive data onto the blockchain or to write large data onto the blockchain. What we're going to do is we're going to hash that data, right? And then we're going to maybe include, some innocuous metadata alongside of it. But what becomes more interesting is how do we share that data inside of our business network, inside of our consortium? Where are those pipes? Where are those rails? Where are those utilities that are going to allow us to have this end-to-end circuitous flow of invoking a smart contract with some proof of that data, but then sharing that data with other folks in the network? The transactional layer, I know a lot of folks here are very familiar with enterprise blockchain, so I won't go, ad nauseum on this one, but, with Quorum, with Besu, with Corda, we know that there's different levels of privacy that we need for different classes of transactions. And then when a transaction happens inside of your blockchain network, what you would really like in an ideal world is some very, very clean messaging system to reliably and in real time consume events, consume those state changes, so that A, you have an awareness and you have that data, but B, more interestingly, maybe you can start automating processes and you can react to that event or that state change on your network. Middleware becomes incredibly, incredibly important. How do our applications talk to each other, and where does our data come from? In Oracle, for example, inside of our blockchain space. And then the application layer, the really fun piece where we're starting to talk about digital assets and different token constructs, and then actually building out the application, right? Do we need to use a Web3 or a thick client library, or is there some happy path? And what we've done in Kaleido is we've created that happy path. We've created a RESTful interface for just basic web programming paradigms. But we've gone a step further. We've made this a really rich interface, allowing you to, weave in really powerful cloud signing techniques and, really powerful sort of transaction submission approaches, thanks to being underpinned by Apache Kafka, that layer right there.
And just a question or two that came through sort of specific to that construct there. Can you share a little bit more detail about sort of on-chain versus off-chain data, sort of how that relates to APIs and interoperability, and kind of, how folks should be thinking about those two key differences and sort of evaluating and thinking about, their BaaS platform selection?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. So the one rule of thumb, or the first two rules of thumb that I'll reiterate here as just best practices, that these are tried and true and learned over a half a decade, is that you keep sensitive data off the blockchain. Why? Well, because the blockchain itself is indelible, right? So you're just opening up a world of hurt in terms of regulations, in terms of potential litigation, if you put any modicum of sensitive data on the blockchain, right? You're sort of admonishing privacy, and just a lot of very bad things can happen. So the critical question here is, where do we keep that off-chain data, right? Do we keep that in our own siloed data store? Do we keep that in sort of an ancillary service, that sits next to the blockchain? Or maybe in an even more ideal world, can we integrate with some existing powerful cloud utilities that we have here? And so at Kaleido, what we've done is we've given you many, many choices here, whether you want to keep that data in your private data store, or whether you want to integrate with, for example, maybe like an AWS S3 bucket, or maybe an Azure Blob container. And that's all good and well, practicing proper privacy and keeping that data off the chain. What becomes really, really important and actually adds value into the business network is having the ability to share that data with other members in the network. So maybe this is a legal contract, maybe this is a deed to a piece of land, maybe this is sensitive information about a healthcare provider or its patient information. Not everyone inside of that network needs access to that data, but there may be certain core participants that do want that data, and maybe they even want to pay for that data. And so now we start weaving together layer 4 and layer 1 up here with digital assets, with our application, and then with our shared data stores here. But the main takeaway that we're seeing, over and over again, and this is truly industry use case agnostic, is if that data is valuable, if that data is sensitive, you keep that data off the blockchain and you just use a secure hashing algorithm, just SHA-256 to hash that data, reference it on the blockchain, and then ideally, have some nice smart contract architecture and have some metadata fields alongside of that, like a name, or maybe an NPI, or something that's allowed to be shared with the rest of the network and with your consortium.
Thanks, Nate.
Okay. Pressing forward. So the last point here is sort of, trying to remove sort of this, stuck in time of I'm in a pilot, I'm in a POC phase. No, we want to give you all of those building blocks so that you can, have your initial sandbox, prove out your use case, and then get this dang thing into production. And we've watched this for 5 to 6 years right here, these same hurdles of, okay, well, we're going to start with the POC, and it used to be really hard to wrap your head around this core technology, crypto primitives, P2P messaging, just new constructs, smart contracts, and consensus algorithms. And so, a lot of those different tranches and buckets, roll your own scripts and templates, PaaS, BaaS, consortia as a service, a lot of these have solved this problem, kind of the technology curve, the nodes, the runtimes, sort of that core blockchain is available. The real problems get on step 2 and step 3 right here. When you get into that pilot phase and you need to answer some of the really, really tough questions about that sort of shared control plane layer, about distributed ownership, and about governance, right? How do we do this with a diverse set of participants? How do we do it with different cloud requirements, different security requirements, and different integration requirements? And then the production phase. This is where we're really excited about. And this is, again, this is what Kaleido has been built for consortia building, scaling for diverse business networks, meaning you pick your cloud, run this in Azure, run this in AWS, or run this thing in your own on-premise data center. Have every type of sort of, key management option available to you, whether it's, encrypting your node with a master key and, using sort of your Web3 logic to unlock and lock, different accounts on your node. Maybe it's using a managed wallet on Kaleido, or maybe it's using, HashiCorp or one of those cloud HSM services. And then how do you actually have the confidence to maybe start with 5, 6 participants on a few clouds? And then how do we bring new regions around the world available? How do we scale to dozens or hundreds of participants and not implode these consensus algorithms that we're running? Tons of questions here at the production phase. And again, I'll reiterate, this is what we've built Kaleido to do, is to answer those questions and give you the building blocks that you need on-chain and off-chain for your application.
Yeah, Nick, and I don't think we can underscore enough how important it is at the consortium level to enable, a cross-cloud hybrid options within a given business network, right? As multiple parties join, each party may want to actually run in a different cloud environment, right? And so there's a lot of complexity that can come from that. But we've seen time and time again that business networks who don't start with that potential scenario in mind, a likely scenario, will sometimes get to the point where after they've the core set of members maybe who all are operating on the same cloud, as soon as they try to expand and onboard other members that don't and aren't going to switch their entire technology into one particular kind of cloud lock-in, or want at least the flexibility to make choices and change over time, or run some of this privately, in their own private stack, if you will. That can actually be a blocker to really, the success of the consortium long term. So I think you really got to evaluate not only are there multiple cloud options, but within a given business network, can each party make selections around a lot of these different, configuration options?
Yeah, so that's a really, really great point, Andrew. So we pressing forward. Touched on all 12 of these bullet points right here, but I think it's worth just surfacing them, sort of one by one of, these are the check marks that we need, for us to actually run, real currencies and actual real production systems, actually, run our core business processes with blockchain as the beating heart in a modern business network. Always the great, exciting, fun questions for me about sort of the dude, where is my key question, right? And, something that I'm very proud of at Kaleido is, we've created about 8 answers to that, right? And we can do, when we speak with clients and we speak with different networks, we can devote single sessions literally just to this topic right here of, what is the best approach? What are your requirements? And how do we accommodate those different requirements, right? Weaving in PKI constructs, X509 certificates into the platform, and doing asymmetric cryptography when we're sharing private documents or when we're sharing application messages. Cross-cloud and hybrid. Andrew reiterated it, but I'll reiterate it again. Just really, really powerful in terms of removing that friction of not only what cloud do you want to run on, but what region do you want to run on, or can I actually run this thing on-prem? And the answer is yes, you can run this on-prem if you want to run that sort of, or if you want the responsibility to do that self-managed runtime. Firing through these HADR, those are of course absolutely critical. Every region in Kaleido has 3 availability zones, and we've proven, automatic failover even if a data center actually goes down. business continuity. There is no vendor lock-in at Kaleido. You get the full life cycle, the full snapshot of your blockchain and the critical key materials that may be used to sign transactions or sign those block headers. And then we've gone through the enterprise integrations. Also can't really over-iterate how important those are as well. So I think this is the final slide here, sort of just kind of one of the additional Kaleido value props here, but just I've mentioned, a lot of us come from IBM. We have, many, many years of experience, building enterprise systems and interacting with enterprise blockchain, huge expertise in core business systems, whether it's messaging, whether it's middleware, and then leadership and cutting edge technology, maintainers and contributors on the Kaleido team to all of the core upstream repositories, and to a lot of the additional services that are out there in the world, Truffle, MetaMask, for example. Okay, so that's all the slides. I'm going to now hop into the product here. And now I can see the Q&A. Great. Okay, so I guess it was hiding behind my screen share. Okay, so we'll come back to some of the questions. Interesting one from Christia about IoT integrations. I'll take that one at the end of the call right there. Okay, so hopping into Kaleido. So what we'll do here is we'll kind of just start from scratch, and we'll give you the art of the possible of, what's available inside of Kaleido, and, how easy it is to create these business networks. So I'm signed in. My organization is called Alpha Organization right here, and we're going to pretend that I'm the founder of a business network. So I'm going to go ahead and create a consortium. I'm just going to call this Tech Tuesday Testnet. But this could, of course, have an applicable name for supply chain, for, healthcare systems, for financial use case. I'm going to click next. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to whitelist one of the cloud providers in one of the regions. And this will be called the home region for our consortium. And it's also going to be available for us when we deploy nodes and when we deploy some of those services that we talked about, storage services or network bridge services or application services. So we're based on the East Coast in the States. I'm going to choose Ohio and AWS in Columbus. And now what we allow you to do is we allow you to whitelist additional clouds and or additional regions. So if you have, sort of a global business network, a global Kaleido consortium, and you have stakeholders that want to run their infrastructure in Korea or in Australia or in the EU, Paris or Frankfurt, this is available to you as well. So we can turn this into not only a multi-region, but a multi-cloud consortium or a business network. And one critical thing to take away here is that these aren't locked in time. These aren't binary decisions. So as your network evolves, as you have new stakeholders, new participants come onto the network, you can very easily continue to whitelist additional regions. And we're here to listen to your requirements. If you have a requirement for a Singapore data center or for a data center in South America or Mexico or China or Tokyo, I'm not an expertise on where all of these data centers are for Azure and AWS, but we are driven by the market and by client requirements. So it's a very, very doable action for our ops team and for Kaleido to bring on different regions in these cloud providers. There's some underlying next-gen elastic file infrastructure that's required in addition to sort of the geography of those data centers. But it's a very approachable conversation if you do have a requirement for a different data center as well. So that's talking about multi-cloud, multi-region, and now we'll go into the governance layer. Two ways you can approach this. And again, this will be a common theme, is that none of your choices are binary, right? You can always dynamically resize your nodes. You can always, opt for different approaches. You can always manipulate your business network. And we're here to work with you throughout these processes. So the first approach that we've seen, a lot of early stage projects employ is leveraging this object, this construct we have in Kaleido called a membership. And this is really useful for mocking out what your organization, what your business network rather might ultimately look like at some point in time, right? You start as a central operator and you stand up resources mimicking the other participants. So that's one approach with this. Or when we talked about kind of the different tiers of participation inside of a business network, maybe you have a certain class of organization or participant that wants a representation on the blockchain, on the network, but they don't want that absolute root system admin control. So using this membership construct, you can operate, we call it a proxy operator model of a benevolent dictator sort of. You can proxy operate resources on behalf of other members inside of the network. So those are the two approaches there. These are also going to work hand in hand with the decentralization approach. And we've backed this with simple APIs, as I mentioned, and also with a really simple, intuitive email member onboarding experience. So I'll show you how that looks like, and I'll actually issue a real invitation and show you how easy it would be to accept or decline that invitation inside the network. So I'm going to invite a Charlie organization. We have an alpha and a bravo, and I'm going to send it to a little dummy email that I created. So as the founder of your network, one really, really critical thing is sort of that control plane, that network RBAC, that network role-based access control. So as you're onboarding new participants into Kaleido, into your business network, you as the initiator, as the founder, you can allocate or you can rescind really powerful macro root level permissions. Can this person create nodes that are going to be signers and participate in the algorithm? Can they manage environments? An absolutely critical permission. Can they onboard other organizations? Or can they go through creating multiple memberships or managing smart contracts on behalf of the business network? And these are going to have huge variance on use cases, sort of, whether you guys have a pre-established consortium or the different rules that you have in your business network. So again, no one size fits all here, but very easy to, allocate or rescind these permissions. So I can send that invitation. We see a very clean view right here that it's been sent to this address right here. And what I can do is I could just log out. I could go to this email inbox and I'll see that invitation, or I can just log into this account on Kaleido and we'll see that I've been invited to the TT testnet network. And I'll be able to have a view of the organizations that are inside of that network. I'll be able to see the permissions that I've been allocated, and I can very easily, make an informed decision about, do I want to participate in this network, or do I think that, I don't have enough skin in the game, or I don't even know who the heck sent me this invitation right here. So it's just a very, very streamlined, very simple flow to decentralize your network and see who's already participating inside of that business network. So that's sort of decentralization in action. I know we've talked about this a handful of times in the past, but I don't know if we've ever gone through end to end, sort of showing how easy that is to just kick off that invitation and then accept or decline accordingly. Okay, so we touched on the network level. We talked about how nothing is sort of locked in stone. We can add regions, we can add members, we can add, decentralized participants. Now let's go a layer deeper and let's go into the runtime layer. Let's go into the blockchain layer. So our nomenclature in Kaleido for a blockchain is an environment. And underneath the umbrella of your consortium, of your business network, you can have many, many blockchains. So we're going hand in hand with your classic DevOps paradigms here, where you can have your sandbox, you can have your dev UAT, you could have a pre-prod staging, and then ultimately you can have a production. And what you'll see here is that we've created some constructs inside of the network to make it very, very easy to logically promote and deploy your code from different environments into, a dev, a UAT, and a production without any breaking changes or without any macro changes to your application tier. You may have noticed that there were two doors to go through, Corda and Enterprise Ethereum. We're going to sprint through the Ethereum door today. We did a Tech Tuesday on Corda a few weeks ago, so encourage folks to either, you can ping us if you need a link to that, or you can just go to the Kaleido Blockchain YouTube page. All of those are recorded. So here's us creating an environment, right? So we'll call this dev right here. We can make this cloud only, where I'll have the choice of any of those regions and any of those clouds, or I can turn this into a hybrid deployment. You just reach out to us if running this on premise is something of interest, and we'll walk you through sort of the approaches to that and get you your hands on the software required for that. So click next. We see all the different clients and all the different algorithms. Don't have time to dig deeply into those today, but just giving you an idea that we're giving you best of breed open source clients, best of breed algorithms, and then even the ability to customize some of these settings. So if you want to run Istanbul, BFT, you can even set your chain ID, or you can move the block interval up or down to certain increments right there. I'll go with Geth and POA just because it's the easiest here. Okay, so here's my namespace for my environment. Again, everything I'm doing has a REST API behind it. And now we can just go ahead and bring it to life. We can create some nodes. So I have a couple memberships. I'll create this called node 1. We see I can put it wherever I want, any of those whitelisted clouds and regions. We'll put one in AWS, and maybe we'll put one in Azure. We talked about enterprise integrations, and I'm going to spend a few minutes on this, but this is a huge critical piece, and this is a deal breaker for certain consortia. Heightened encryption, taking it to the absolute maximum of anything that's persisted into disk, right? So we allow you to weave in your own master encryption key, to give extra protection to that node signing key that's going to be used for the algorithm. Business continuity and backups. Can't overemphasize how important this is, but the ability for you to recreate, the entirety of your private blockchain, in a different cloud orchestration or in your own on-premise data center. So we're giving you the full lifecycle, full history of your blockchain. Log streams, right? Send these to, a Cabana dashboard and have your own rich analytics and, marry your application next to what's happening on the blockchain. Super for heightened insights and debugging. Maybe you want private traffic. Maybe you want to only, send your application logic and send your calls, on the AWS backbone. So this will allow you to run your app in a virtual private cloud and never pass through the public internet. We've done some rich things around, application level role-based access control, integrating with powerful identity access management systems. And then lastly, rich configurations at the protocol level, running your node, as a full archive node, for example, or changing the logging level for your node. So all of those are available for you right there, and those tick off a lot of those critical enterprise IT requirements. And then the last one, as we're going through sort of just this initial runtime orchestration layer, is that there is no one size fits all. Throughput changes with with your application, scale changes with applications. How many connections are we going to have? So we have different T-shirt sizes to accommodate those realities, small, medium, and large, where you can have higher requests per second, you can have more horizontal scale and concurrent client connections. So go ahead and click finish, and we've created a blockchain node. And again, there's a very simple API behind this. It's infrastructure as code, and we provide CLIs and even Terraform providers for you to very easily stand up and tear down your resources here. I'll just add one more node for our other organization, our Bravo organization, call it node 2. We'll hopscotch through this, click next and next, and then we'll go ahead and click finish. So as these guys are coming up, I want to draw your attention to one of my favorite pieces in the platform. I call it the Kaleido easy button. And this is where we've sort of removed the necessity to write a lot of custom code that would otherwise be the case. It's an abstraction of the kind of esoteric and tricky Ethereum API. And as I mentioned, it allows you to use just basic web development paradigms to speak to your smart contract on Kaleido. And we only ask you to do one thing. We just ask you to teach us about your smart contract. And you can do this in myriad ways. You can, link to a GitHub repository, public or private. You can upload, raw bytecode and the ABI, or you can even just upload, a single Solidity file or a nested directory from your local machine. And what Collido is going to do on your behalf is we're going to give you a REST endpoint for every single method inside of your smart contract. So now you at your application tier, no longer are you using an SDK or a thick client library. You're sending lightweight calls into the network. You have Apache Kafka under the covers. These transactions are going to get reliably assembled, signed, and submitted to the network. You don't have to concern yourself with any of the nuances of Ethereum, compilation, type mapping, or specifically sequencing. What we've also done with this tier right here is we haven't compromised any of the critical key management techniques. So you can use this happy path layer right here, we call it our REST API gateway, and you can integrate it with private Ethereum keys that are held in, an AWS HSM cluster, or in Azure Key Vault, or in a HashiCorp server running in your own on-premise data center. And then what we've also done with this layer right here is we've gone both ways. So we've allowed it, we've made it very easy to send transactions in, but for your applications, we've made it very, very easy to sort of consume those pertinent state changes, those pertinent events. And what can you do with this right here? Well, you can have a local copy of the blockchain. You can have your own rich database, but you can also start automating some of your core business processes, and you can react to events that are taking place on the network. Okay, so I'm going to spend 3 or 4 more minutes just walking you through how to interact with that layer right there. And then we also have our CEO that's joined the call. So maybe I'll let Andrew resurface a couple questions. And if we have any other outstanding questions, I'll leave those with Steve as well. So stepping back into our network layer right here, I'm going to go ahead and use our shared asset tool, and I'm going to create a contract project. And what we'll see here in a matter of 15 to 20 seconds is I'm just going to link to a GitHub repository, and Kaleido is going to compile all of the Solidity code for us, and it's going to spit out a set of REST APIs. So I'm just going to go click next right here, navigating my Zoom bar, and then I'm going to create a new compilation inside of this namespace. So I'm going to call it version 1 of simple storage, and then I'm just going to link to this really uninteresting piece of Solidity code here. It just has an integer and it has a setter and a getter right here. But what you're going to notice is Kaleido is going to give us a REST API for this set and for this get and for this query method. So let me grab this URL, and we'll watch Kaleido again in the matter of 15 to 20 seconds, go ahead and serve us up that ABI, that bytecode, and ultimately a rich set of REST APIs for us to speak to. And this is the happy path. And you can use your favorite REST client like Postman to talk to these endpoints. And we've also given you sort of an embedded Swagger interface inside of the product for you to speak to as well. So we'll give this 3 or 4 more seconds, and we'll see that ABI and we'll see that bytecode come out. And then what I'll be able to do is I'll be able to promote this into my dev environment, and we'll see that rich set of REST APIs that we'll use to very quickly instantiate this smart contract and then maybe send a transaction here. So we'll give it a human-friendly naming convention, SS, shorthand for simple storage, and then I can go ahead and just view this gateway API. One lovely thing here is that every node, every member inside of the business network is taught about this shared business logic. So you don't need to share source code out of band. Everyone has access to these REST APIs and to this unequivocal, guaranteed, common business logic that we have here. So here's the embedded Swagger interface. We can just use the root post method right here, click try it out. Again, you could just as easily do this with a little Node.js app or inside of, Postman. I'll give it 10 because that's the date today. I can choose who I want to sign from, remember. So it's defaulting to the account that's on our Ethereum node. But again, this could be held in a Cloud HSM. This could be a Kaleido HD wallet. I can submit it synchronously, or I can just do a fire and forget into the Kafka topic. And one lovely thing here is that we don't have to deal with hexadecimal. We can give this a human-friendly naming convention when we instantiate or deploy smart contracts onto Kaleido. So you're not dealing with this nasty hex string anymore. Everyone knows that, this is this certain set of business logic, and, it's meant to do, this piece inside of our broader network right there. SS123, but this could just be, accounts payable or, goods received, for example. So that's about as easy as it gets at the Solidity layer. At the Ethereum layer, it's just as easy to configure an event. As soon as you teach Kaleido about source code, will automatically detect, all of the events and all the signatures that are available to subscribe to. Tons of more different, exciting, rich features inside of the platform. Rich metrics, rich monitoring, data explorer, smart contract views, tons of assets, tons of functionality around digital assets and tokenization, and then just a huge, rich set of key management features and cloud configurations, in addition to that middleware, that B2B layer where we need to share application messages, or we maybe need to even share documents. Okay, so that's all the talking for me. I'm gonna turn it over to Andrew and see if there's any questions that are still hanging out, and then maybe we'll just let Steve make some closing arguments perhaps here as well.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Great job. I know you covered a lot of bases, both in terms of sort of the thinking behind sort of blockchain as a service, both sort of how Kaleido is differentiated, how blockchain as a service is baked into our platform, but also some of the limitations that are important to be aware of when looking across the landscape of different BaaS offerings. And great demo too, so fast. It's amazing. I've shot a couple of questions that have come through over to Steve, and just a reminder, now's a great time to pop them into the Q&A tool if you've got anything that we can address. I think maybe just a question about sort of integration, Steve, to tee it up. Sort of what are some of the integration options with Kaleido? I think this is probably meant to be a broad question about both protocols and beyond. And we can kind of expand from there.
Yeah, sure, Andrew, thanks. And it looks like a good set of questions already. And we'll do our best to work quickly through them. And you can always follow up via email, and we can get some more time with you one-on-one to talk through some of these. So as you said, a couple questions around integrations. What Nick was stepping through, and a lot of the investment that we made in Collido is to make it easier to integrate the blockchain as a service that's running inside of Collido, your blockchain, with other systems. Blockchain is all about collaboration. And if you can't connect your blockchain to any of the hundreds of existing systems or a new system like an IoT system, for example, which was another one of the questions, then you're not in the end going to realize your business use case. So there are a bunch of tools and modules and capabilities that you can turn on, plug and play capabilities inside of Kaleido. Nick was talking about the REST API gateway for getting, for integrating inbound into Kaleido, and then the mirror image of that, the event streams to capture events happening on the blockchain and emit those outbound. Those are all standards based. So, open REST APIs, Apache Kafka as well. We provide a native interface there, WebSockets, webhooks, and so on to really help you integrate with an enterprise service bus or directly with another platform that's off Kaleido. And then we've built that security layer in. So, authentication tokens, strong credentials, and so on, according to industry best practices. In practice, we see, basically every blockchain project needs to connect and integrate at least one, often multiple systems. To the question around integrating any blockchain platform, Kaleido provides out of the box a number of protocols and consensus algorithms for you. And so there's no need to integrate another blockchain technology. If the question was more geared towards, for example, an external blockchain as a service, where you may want to integrate across Kaleido's blockchain and that other blockchain as a service, that's not possible yet today. That is an area where we've had discussions with clients. There are a number of complexities to manage: the reliability of the consensus algorithm, how to apply rolling upgrades, things as fundamental as the networking technologies and mixing and matching security layers and bridging a network. So it's that question sounds simple on the surface, but it's actually quite complex. That said, we have had a number of discussions with clients, and depending upon your requirement of where that one's coming from, we'd be happy to speak more with you on that offline.
So there's
Steve, I was just going to say, I think there is a thread around sort of identity. I think there's a lot of ways that we could discuss identity and how that relates to enterprise blockchain and some of the identity options within Kaleido, but that one might be worth taking a stab at.
Yeah, identity's a great topic, but it's also a deep topic. The old joke, security is a deep topic, and identity is the same. I think the thing to keep in mind with blockchain is every blockchain protocol, brings with it some sort of an identity system, right? It's built into the blockchain protocol itself. Now, the different protocols, Corda versus Ethereum, have done identity differently. Identity is important on a blockchain because it's tied to permissioning. So, in enterprise blockchain, we talk about organization A, organization B, a user acting on behalf of organization A, and so on. So that identity and permissioning level is really important, and it's natively there in the blockchain technology. Of course, outside of blockchain, there are many existing identity systems. Every enterprise, for example, has a core LDAP or Active Directory sort of a system where the organization manages the identity of the individuals within that organization. Every organization also goes to VeriSign or one of the others and establishes its identity on the internet as an organization. And there's a chain of trust. And that identity is very important. It's managed by InfoSec people within the company. So what we have then is a problem of how to connect or bridge or flow identity through existing systems into this new blockchain-based system, and how to do that seamlessly. There are a number of solutions for this, a number of technologies. I'd encourage you to look out on our knowledge base for this topic. And about 90% of the time, we see that it's a classic sort of either SAML or OAuth, OpenID Connect type of a problem where identity needs to flow through these systems. And so that's the most common problem that we see being solved. I will add quickly one honorable mention in the identity topic, which is a new and interesting and exciting form of what we call self-sovereign identity. And that's really about introducing an overall new paradigm of how identity could be managed at an internet-wide scale. In an entirely fundamentally new model where, as the name implies, the goal is to put users sort of back in control in a self-sovereign way of their identity. There are a number of projects that are working and incubating this technology to be really useful. It's a very powerful construct, but it is somewhat early days, and to be useful, you would need a broad set of adoption. There are a number of flagship projects that you could read more out there. And Canada has a system based on, that you could read about, for example, with banks and telcos and government participating in it. And I encourage you to research more if that's of interest.
So Steve, I think as we've rounded out, crossover into the next hour, I think we've got time maybe for one more. So there's been a couple of threads around just the shared responsibility model and kind of how that's split with the client. I'm curious if you want to offer any thoughts on how to, how to consider that.
Yeah, and this is a great question. This is, the core of this question is, what is, as a Kaleido user, what is your responsibility for the infrastructure, the system overall, the resources, and what is Kaleido's responsibility to you for those running pieces of software? So the big picture is the cloud computing is about 20 years old now, and it's evolved a lot over time. if I use, AWS as an example, you saw, early on, it was very disruptive, the idea that you could go get a virtual machine whenever you wanted it, right? So that infrastructure as a service. And what you've seen as AWS has populated their catalog from a couple dozen service to who knows how many, hundreds at this point. A lot of the newer services, all of a sudden you saw come along, their RDMS, relational database as a service. You saw something like Lambda come along. And those are what we'd call managed services. A managed service is, no longer here's infrastructure, it's your responsibility. It's, hey, click a button and here's a set of APIs or access credentials to access a piece of running managed software. And often the more sophisticated those services get, there are things like, the software provider, provides an SLA to guarantee that that stays up. It helps with maintenance and other sorts of things. And the more sophisticated they get, they may even give back buttons to you, like you can press the upgrade button on your own time frame, but it's still a managed upgrade process. And Kaleido's really on these newer edge, is on the newer edge of what we call a managed service. Again, unfortunately, we're really bad at naming things in IT because that term is used to mean other things as well. In the question, one of the questions on this, there was, PaaS versus SaaS. And it's not, I guess in my opinion, it's not these two distinct buckets, but maybe more of a continuum. And we talk about Kaleido like it's a platform, but we also talk about it like it's a SaaS. I think the bottom line point for a user, and I agree with the question, that it is important to understand the lines of where the responsibilities are. One is that Kaleido, manages and supports the open source code. If there's any problem, support's built in, it's integrated. There's no responsibility for the user, for you, the user, to really be an expert in that layer, and you'd expect that. Also, all of the infrastructure is encapsulated away from you. What we give you when you click and say, here's the node I want, here's the size I want, we give back to you a set of APIs and credentials. We build in all the monitoring, the dashboards, but if there's a problem with that, Kaleido support will fix that. From a maintenance perspective, when going from one release to another, there's no testing at the protocol level. Kaleido manages all of that, just like RDMS or relational database on a cloud. We give you back that button to perform the rolling upgrade on your own time schedule, but we take full responsibility for that. And we give you a 99 SLA that says we guarantee you'll be able to access this node, and there are guarantees around that. And so it really is, in my view, much closer to a SaaS, to a software as a service, where it's the full stack of the infrastructure, the software, it's all managed for you. You have your unique, just like in AWS, they sort of evolved this construct of the VPC, the virtual private cloud. Your blockchain network runs inside of an isolated environment. You are in control. As the user, you can tear them down, set up new ones, stop, start, change the size. But it's our responsibility to manage the integrity of all that infrastructure and so on.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Steve. Thanks for joining us. Nick, fantastic job. As we put out there in the chat, there's a couple ways you can get in touch with us by email. Don't hesitate to reach out if you think of any other questions. This Tech Tuesday is recorded, and we'll post this via our YouTube page, and you'll receive the link to the recording by email as well. So thanks again for joining Kaleido's Tech Tuesday on Blockchain as a Service, and a live demo of Kaleido's enterprise blockchain platform. Until next time, see you later.